how weird. Oh, go live. No, it's still spinning.
Okay, yeah, here we go. We are live.
Yep.
All right, so. Wife, unmute your mic for me real quick.
Yeah.
All right, what's up, gamers? Welcome back to Why We Roll, the tabletop role-playing game chat show brought to you by the Stillfleet Studio, which is myself, Chris Pickett, and my wonderful co-host, as always,
Wythe Marschall. It's me.
Hey, it's you. Welcome back once again, everybody, including Wythe and myself. Tonight, we're very excited. We are joined by a very cool designer, sourcebook author, and wearer of many, many hats. Tonight, we're going to be chatting with Yamil Camacho. Let me know if I got the last name correct, Yamil. But yeah, welcome to Why We Roll. How's it going?
Yeah, no, you got it. Doing well.
Hey.
Yeah, Yamil Camacho. If you're a certain age, you'll think of the boxer. If you're a certain other age, you'll think of Mountain Dew Camacho, our president from Idiocracy. So either way, I don't know how I feel about either one of those characters, but
Terry
yeah, it's good to
Crews
be
seems
here.
pretty cool.
Yeah, Terry Crews, and my other last name is Cruz, Cruz. So
Oh my God.
looks like we're leaning to the Terry Crews a little bit more than
looks like it's going to be a 2028 presidential run.
Yes, you're here to kick off your presidential run, right?
Yeah.
Look, somebody's got to.
Free TTRPGs for everybody.
Yeah.
No, thanks for making time, Yamil. It's great to spend more time and talk a little more depth. We met at a con, and I think one of the things we'll talk about is conventions and game conventions. But yeah, as we were just talking about before taping, I know you've done a lot of different work, so I'm excited to get into it.
Yes.
We do normally start. Well, first of all, I guess would you like to introduce yourself a little bit in terms of games? Anything else you want to say that people should know other than your names? Which are
Sure.
many and awesome. And
So yeah, I'm Yamil. I'm based out of North Carolina, in the Durham area. I've worked for Goodman Games. I've done work for I've done 5e work, but not for Wizards. I was the editor for World of Trash last year, and we put out some short stories and three raccoons in a trench coat, which is a really fun game to have worked on. And then this year we kickstarted. Ahmed Sufeti and I kickstarted Tales from the Tape Deck, the mixtape RPG that fits in a tape case.
which is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And is a fun thing that I definitely want to ask more questions about.
Yeah, we're big fans of the cassette as a medium. I think I can safely say that for Stillfleet Studio. I know I certainly am. We were chatting a little bit before we jumped on air. You know, you're going to be at a Dungeon Synth festival, and I feel like Tales from the Tape Deck would just fly off the shelf at a Dungeon Synth festival. They love their cassettes, man. They love that analog medium.
Yeah, absolutely. And we while our game won't be out but for that one, because it's in June and we're going to be out in December, we're going to have the EP, the Tales from the Tape Deck EP release for them
Nice.
to enjoy in the meantime.
And Tales from the Tape Deck is still late pledging on Kickstarter right now. Is that correct? So folks,
Yes,
if you are
that's right.
watching right now, you can still go back the project, and probably still by the time that you hear this on the podcast, yeah, I think we'll put the link in the show notes for sure.
Until end of June, I believe, is when we'll end the late pledges.
Right on.
Yeah, and folks should check out Tales from the Tape Deck now, and whenever you're listening to this, if it's not open for late pledges, you should just ask your friendly local game store.
Just buy it.
Yeah, just buy it. Just find out, like, you have Google, right? It's the 2020s. Let's get that shit. So with that,
GTS.
yeah, figure it out. Yamil, could you tell us a little before we get to Tales from the Tape Deck, which is like the main thing we were going to talk about? How'd you get into games in general? What's your background in games? What was your first love as a role
Oh
playing
man.
gamer?
So I started back in 2003 with third edition, or 2002, 2003. Um, and uh, I had like Dungeon magazine and Dragon magazine. Like those were like my gaming community was just reading all of that, figuring out what things came from before, um, like AD&D stuff, um, and like like I feel like I've always gravitated towards third party stuff, because back then it was like Green Ronin and eventually Pathfinder. So like that's how I first started, and then kind of came back. I want to say 2010, something like that, and was playing Pathfinder, playing fifth edition. The the indie boom that started around that time. Like I have, I mean, you can see it behind me. There's most of this is RPGs, if not like it's like Appendix N related stuff. So, oh yeah, and DCC was also around 2010, 20. Yeah, what I'm gonna say 2013. I think that's when the product itself came out.
And then was that like was DCC the big revelation that like you're like this is what I want essentially,
Yeah,
or
yeah. The magic system where you can either do a regular fireball, or a giant wall of flame comes over the horizon and envelops the whole town. So that aspect of it, yes, the old school art. Like I have a lot of Brad McDevitt, a lot of his art around. Basically, like I'm surrounded by maps of DCC and Forgotten Realms. Back there, it's the map for Weird Frontiers, which is the a third party offshoot of Dungeon Crawl Classics, where you're in a weird west where you're fighting like Cthulhu like monsters and chupacabras, and there's luchadors.
that's rad. That sounds more
Yeah,
interesting
that
to
sounds
me.
awesome.
Yeah, than typical Weird West. I feel like often Weird West forgets that like most of the West, like I don't know, speak Spanish. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty good. I'm curious before we move ahead from this, just since you mentioned it, Yamil, um, outside of the game stuff, what's in your appendix in? Like what's on the shelf beside the gaming stuff that, I'm just curious, like is it a lot of sword and sorcery? Is that kind of like, the Goodman Games DCC draw, or is it get a little bit weirder from there?
Yeah, it's a little bit all over the place, because I'm also a big fan of magical realism from Latin America, like the Luis Borges um, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, um, and lately I've been getting really into um, I'm originally from Puerto Rico, so I've been getting into a lot of the mythology and a lot of the history of the indigenous people of Puerto Rico, the Taino, and so that's been basically this year been really influential. But in terms of long term, it's got to be like old westerns. It's got to be like I said, the magical realism, and just a lot of different styles of music. Like music has always been important to me, even before the whole Tales from the Tape Deck thing appeared. Like I was the person that would make a playlist for my campaign that was just for me to like be like, all right, this is the mood that I'm going for.
Yeah, no,
Oh yeah, that's
that's really
awesome.
rad. We should definitely ask more questions about music as well. I was thinking, I think some of the things that got me into games were also like, why is this not in games, or like in homebrew, like playing D&D like 2E or 3E, like bringing in stuff I liked. So like, why can't people in Planescape listen to like Wu-Tang? Like, it's
Yeah,
not in
yeah,
the rules,
yeah.
but like they can go anywhere, right? They can go anywhere in time and space. So like, they presumably are all listening to Wu-Tang while doing like, magical political shit.
Presumably, of course.
Presumably, but no, but I'm curious to link some of those things together. If you, because you were saying about DCC, some specific things that you felt that it sort of nailed and brought you into that world, and immediately started talking about the hacks, and that made me think back to like, again, that OSR moment and like learning that, oh, I can just change stuff, I can make my own
Yeah.
versions. Do you remember what are some of the first things you did specifically as a designer, not just GMing or playing, but like moments where you're like, I'm gonna take this but make X more Y, or you know what I mean, like add the music I like or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, like homebrew specifically, I think I've mentioned it before, but my brother and I would change to Spanish, and that would be like whatever race he was playing. So if he was playing an elf, then that was the elven tongue. Like we would just switch to Spanish, or like dwarven or whatever. Um, and but in terms of design, one of the first things I worked on was for Gong Farmers. I did a um, so in luchador culture, the mask is very important. The mask is like heritage. The mask is your honor. It's very important. So I wrote an article about adding some rules around the mask, right? Where you have your mask versus mask, or mask versus hair matches, the lucha de apuestas. And so I wrote a little bit for that Weird Frontiers, gave some examples and put uh, some little Easter eggs for wrestling fans. Like there may or may not be an Undertaker mask in there. I know he didn't really have.
Oh yeah.
He did have a mask briefly, like a
He did,
Phantom of
yeah.
the Opera thing, but it was just like using the name, like calling him the Mortician or something like that. Um, so yeah, that's probably one of my first ones. That was because I was encouraged by Dave Beatty, who created Weird Frontiers, to start writing, because I was doing editing before that. Like I just edited for uh, Peak City Publishing. I was doing prose, like science fiction and fantasy. Um, I did for um, Falstaff. I worked on a Edgar Allan Poe inspired anthology that came out a couple years ago, and then Dave was the one who inspired me to come to this side of publishing games and all that.
Yeah, that's rad. I love going back to just the simplicity of swapping out like quote unquote Elvish or Dwarven for like Spanish, and then
Yeah.
using that as a way to like play your games. But then that also is very generative because it's obviously going to bring ideas from a whole world, into a different. It's going to mash together those worlds. You know what I mean? As like a
Yeah.
side effect. And I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
similarly the masks. Like, people wear masks in games. They look cool. Spire famously has like a whole mask book, and I think it's
right.
cool that you were like, yeah, this is simple. Something, bring together these two seemingly different elements, and then of course they're like, how different are they? It's power fantasies, all the way down. So
Right.
that's rad.
Yeah. I really love the idea of like Latinate dwarves, because I feel like they're always imagined as very like
Yeah, yeah,
Germanic and very,
Yeah,
like English, German, Danish, this kind of like Scandinavian kind of thing. But I love the idea of like a Latin speaking dwarf is really funny and interesting
yeah,
to me. I'm just being like, no, we're taking that. That's not.
well, that that to me isn't as weird, because like when I was first introduced to Lord of the Rings, like I was learning English, and I would be like,
Mm.
an elf or a gnome, and I would think gnome like a lawn gnome, and I would think
Yeah.
like an elf, like a Keebler elf. So they're all relatively like the same size.
Hell yeah.
So like it never like solidified until, like, I guess the movies did do that, like by having like Legolas and Gimli and all that. But for a while I was like, because I was reading ElfQuest too, so that kind of
Oh, they're all tiny. Yeah.
gravitated it. Yeah, they're all tiny. Yeah.
Well, this is a thing actually that again is like before Tolkien, there wasn't a standard elf or standard dwarf, and I don't think that was Tolkien's point. To be fair to like a guy we beat up on as like an easy target, but like
Yeah,
those movies are based, the books are based on legends, and his thing was just to make a coherent set of novels. And only now, after like Gygax and everything, it's like there's very standardized like fantasy races,
right,
which is really weird.
right.
The whole thing is weird
Yeah,
top
it's
to
very
bottom.
strange.
And it's almost more fun to go back to like I think of like weird comics, like the way I feel like Alan Moore or someone would handle this is just by literally having the elves all be different sizes, and it's just like
Yeah,
yeah, whatever, they're little people. What does that mean to you? How big are you? Okay, they're smaller than that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I feel like you're not, I remember playing 5e over the pandemic with my wife, who now works with us and makes games, but she's from Thailand and was like, why are there so many different kinds of short people who are all basically the same? They're all just short people in this game. Like, what is the difference? Why do I need to know so many kinds? And I had no
Well,
answer. I
because
was like, I don't. Yeah.
because we needed euphemisms as colonizers. How else?
Yeah, right. They're just stand-ins. Yeah, they're subalterns.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know. Yeah.
yeah.
no, they are subalterns for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
Oh boy, it's fun. Fantasy is so fun.
so fun. Well, we're fixing it, right? That's what this show's about. Hey,
Yeah,
we're fixing it.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
just
That's
tuning
what
in.
we're trying. That's what we're trying. So like moving forward a little bit in time, you've done some work for Goodman, you've done some work for some other folks. I'm curious about some of the things that you've designed yourself, and kind of like for yourself. I know that you have these kind of 5e Kingdom of Keshinar kind of adventure supplements, and then there's also 3 raccoons in a trench coat. So I was curious, yeah, like what did the process look like? Writing for other folks, and then kind of moving into more of your own worlds or content, or however we want to kind of frame that.
Yeah, yeah. So, let's see. So, Kingdom of Kashnar, that was, um, I was that was work for hire, and writing for them was pretty cool because they were working with Egyptologists. So I got to sit in at some of their uh, like webinars or whatever conference presentations, and got to learn a lot about how active the Egyptology scene is, and um, how like there's new discoveries all the time about how far and how long ago it was, and how far it extended back. So with that, it was more of a okay, like we get to pick and choose what is gameable and what we liked, or it was handed down to me of like, hey, turn take take this. We want to showcase because a lot of it was we were promoting um, at cons, so it was like, hey, what would be a good way to showcase the city because they had built the whole city in 3D. Um, and I was like, well, you can have them like do like a city crawl where they can walk around and experience the different aspects of the city. So it was very much like writing via prompts, like that I was just told, hey, we want to showcase this and have this monster. And I would be like, okay, great, let's put it together. Um, with uh with World of Trash, like they also kind of wanted to showcase their world where it's more the fantasy aspect of it, of the cute animals, and they're interacting with our trash. Um, and that was we released that one in at Gen Con last year, and it did really well. But yeah, when it comes to writing for me, it's really about like always start with like a title, like a song title or something that like last year I did When the Sky Comes Looking for You, which is a Motorhead song, and turned it into uh, a weird Western adventure where you're on a zeppelin that's going to hell, and you're trying to get out of it before you end up in hell. So it's just I like, and I also I love noir, like just noir films. So I feel like I always kind of stick a little bit of noir where you're not necessarily the heroes. Like you're not sure if you're doing if because in that one you're working for a loan shark, a luchador loan shark, and so you're like, should I trust this guy? Should I not? Like money is money, and then you end up in the zeppelin, and you're like, what's going on here? Are we the good guys? Are we the bad guys? What's happening? So I always enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah, I love the question of are we the good guys or are the bad guys? It's interesting you mentioned like writing for the environment because that's such a fun way to think about things where you do have the constraints basically of having to
Yeah,
work with somebody else's design because Tales from the Tape Deck, I mean, totally different, but it's still that constraint, right? You're working backward from like the format, the product, but also the culture
yeah,
of like tapes and
oh
what
yeah,
does a tape sort of imply? Like say, and that's a little different than the blank canvas of like my special game. It's like I have this kind of specific interaction in mind, and I have to work backward to give it a good story to fill it with stuff. So that's cool. I wonder. This is kind of random, but do you have any tips just as a writer for folks who are like writing their own RPGs? Anything that you found over the years you've learned from all these different experiences that's helped you like jumping in and writing adventures, working on different games?
yeah. I would say my biggest one is deadlines. Give yourself deadlines, even if they're fake deadlines. Like make yourself a roadmap for the year or something. That way you have some structure, and that way it's something more tangible, right? I always go to um like other like ideas are like water. They're shapeless. Like you can be like, oh yeah, I want to do this. Oh, and it would be cool if I can also do this. And like it's all an idea. It all fits. You think that it's the greatest thing, but then the moment that you write down those deadlines, make that map of like, hey, like I'm gonna need to do this and so like with Tales from the Tape Deck, we have to. There's original music. There's music from other bands. There's the it all has to fit an hour. And then the cassette itself, because we were putting out a cassette for this one, that it has to have 30 minutes per side, so it has to be roughly like we can't we have to figure it out how it flows. That way, it's not as lopsided, like one side way longer than the other, and so you're going to run into a lot of unforeseen things. If you can prepare yourself with using those deadlines and using that structure, they'll help you a little bit as you make way.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely true. I think even like beyond deadlines, just reasonably chunking things out, like learning to break things up,
Yeah,
So it's not just
outlining.
like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Outlining is
outlining.
my number one. Like going from, oh, I have to go from 0 to 100 to just like, no, I have to go from 0 to 10 and then from 11 to
right.
20, etc. And what does that mean for each project? Of course, is going to be different. Chris,
Yeah,
sorry, did you
yeah.
have a
Mileage
question?
mileage
Yeah.
may vary. No, no. I was also just gonna agree that having those deadlines, having those constraints is always helpful. And I mean, yeah, for me, it's always just accountability. So I've said it before on air, and I'll say it again. Very lucky to have Wythe and the other folks at Stillfleet Studio, because otherwise I would never get anything done. I'll blow past a deadline, fake or real, But if I have somebody there to tell me that I'm messing up, then it's a little bit easier. I am curious, so you just moving with the conversation, going
Yeah,
into Tales from the Tape Deck. I'm curious how that project kind of came about, how you got started on it, and then that falls into a few other things, like why the tape format specifically. Does that affect the play? Does it affect your design choices going into it? Yada yada. We can get to all of that, but yeah, tell us about Tales of the Tape Deck. What is it? How does it play? And yeah, how did it come about?
yeah. It so what is it? Is it's if it's a uh, highly portable TTRPG that has music as a playlist. So that's the elevator pitch. Um, and the reason why we picked the format of the tape deck was here in Durham there's a place called the Scrap Exchange, and it's for artists to, like, teachers, artists, creatives. They can buy anything from like cloth to actual supplies to games to a bunch of different stuff. And I was there over a year ago, and they had just a barrel full of empty cassette cases. And I looked at them, and I have some of them somewhere. Um, but either way, I looked at them and I was like, "Oh, you could like stick a whole game in there, and that way you can just put it in your pocket, you can put it in your bag, whatever." And I messaged my co-writer on it, Ahmed Sufeti, and he was like, "Let's do it. Like, let's just." And I was like, "Well, I hold on. Like, I don't know how. Like I don't even know if they could still print them, if they could print like a little zine that small." So we started doing all that research. We started play testing throughout Gen Con and GaryCon last year, and we had some games this year as well there. But yeah, it just, the format fit, and then all of a sudden, like, from there, we went into like, what if we actually put out music? And so we started working on that, and I used to be really active in the local music scene. Like, I DJ'd for people, and so I reached out to a bunch of the bands that I know, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll be on it. Like, we'll send you a song." And so it kind of grew from there. Um, and we wanted it to be 80s because it's kind of, that retro appeal of the cassette. Like, so everything's kind of written as if it were a product from the 80s, and a little bit of the vibe, um, especially with The Righteous Ride of the Radicals, which is our Mad Max adventure. That one leans into the hair metal, leans into the synths and all that of the 80s. And that's the one that, if you go to the late pledges, you'll see that we're actually putting out a cassette version, like with the music on both sides. Um and that one's just a 200 copy, because that's what we could afford for the licensing for the bands. And you'll still get the music on like QR codes and things like that. So, and all of that stuff goes to the artists, the music, I mean. Um, but it was mostly, we wanted to bring that timer to gaming, right? And everywhere we've play tested it, we play tested it at bars, at cons, at lines at a con, um, people's basements, I already said bar, multiple bars, and and it's been uh, a really really good reception. Like, people vibe into it, and people starting to like. Another aspect of it is that you can interact with the music, so you can like pop the tape, and that means that you get a 3 minute in real life, 3 minute pause for the game, where you can all the players can discuss or plan or just heal or whatever they need for those 3 minutes. And that's one of the tape powers. Another one would be, they can choose to skip a song, to like fast forward, and that might be to escape a scenario. But the fast forward button, like as if it were a movie where it just keeps going, that means that the game master can place them in a different scenario, whether it's positive or negative. That's up to them. So we just wanted to have that fun interactivity with the playlist.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, that's
awesome. I
rad.
love how the physical format is informing how you're actually playing the game. And I love the idea of having um, yeah, real world timers in
Right.
TTRPGs. You see this a
Right.
bit with, I guess, Shadow Dark kind of does this with the
Yep.
torch thing. What's the other game? 10 Candles. 10 Candles is another
10
great
candles.
example of that.
Huge influence. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what do you like throughout playtesting and working on the game? Like, what have you found that having that timer or those, again, I mean, we're just talking about like real world constraints. Like, what does that bring to the table? How do players interact with that, especially with the cassette as your kind of timing medium?
Yeah, so we found that it actually um, it motivates a bit of the old school play of like the player ability as opposed to the character's ability, where a lot of people started using their music knowledge to be like, oh, uh, if we choose this song, it's 5 minutes or 7 minutes long. We can use that one to turn the volume up. Everybody gets plus ones on all their rolls, and we're maximizing it because we're using it on a 7 minute song as opposed to like a 2 minute punk song or something like that. So people were we quickly noticed that people were doing that. People were because we wanted the game to be like you play it in 1 hour spurt or 2 hours and that's it. Um, so the players would start talking to me as the game master and asking me, "Hey, are you slowing us down on purpose? Like what he's asking us about all these choices and stuff. No, 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 we're on time. The music is going." So they were like in it. They were engaged. So that was another positive sign was just like people would be like, "Yeah, I'm enjoying this music, but that means that the clock is ticking." I think
Yeah,
you're
that's
both
really awesome.
muted.
No, no, I
Yeah.
was just listening. I was picturing that moment, and I can imagine as a player, because I will say, like the idea of the light mattering in Shadow Dark is a cool idea,
Yeah.
which I like converted for Danse Macabre for Unsunken Paris Below, the Paris Mega Dungeon. But it's as a GM, I still don't even use it myself. Like it's just another thing to keep track of. Whereas music
Yep.
that everyone is hearing, it's
Exactly.
less cognitive burden because I don't have to be like, wait, do you have a torch out? Wait, do you have a torch out? It's like, and you can represent that different ways. But I
Yeah.
like that music is something
Yeah.
we can all passively sort of keep track of and feel the rhythm of, especially with famous songs, which
Hmm.
again, it's kind of a world thing of like usually I feel like many GMs have that impulse to keep it diegetic. So like if you're in D&D, people are playing tavern music, it's like
Yeah.
Bardcore.
flute, bardcore,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
dwarf core, whatever core. And I think what's cool about a game that is saying, no, maybe, first of all, it could be modern, and second of all, what if you break that and use the other music more like a soundtrack in a movie? Is you can create
Right.
a lot of those emotions much much more quickly, kind of like karaoke. There's songs that everyone is going to react to with a big, yeah, like I want to do the thing when this music is happening, right? I want to kill the goblin when I'm hyped to kill somebody, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's a
Yeah.
really natural way to play around with the mechanic, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting too to have those emotional swells because it's going to be a little bit different song to song, of course, but you can also kind of like tell when a song is about to end. Like you can tell
Yep.
like, oh, we're in the third
Yep.
act of this song. Like we got to hurry up what we're doing, or like like there's an interesting uh it's interesting because it becomes less abstract than like the torch mechanic in Shadow Dark. And again, it's closer to kind of 10 candles where it's like, oh no, I
Yeah.
can see the candles getting low.
Exactly.
I can
Yeah.
see them going out. I can smell the smoke now that a couple have burnt out. So yeah, there's like an interesting like affective layer that comes with that where it's both like, yeah, I want to match my actions to the emotional moment in the song, but also like I know that this song is going to end soon.
Yep. And the song order, like one of the
Mm,
things that we're working on for because we're halfway writing the adventures. Um and it's a we don't know if it'll make it or not because we're going to test it. It's a shuffle button. So like it'll change the order of the playlist because you hear the playlist twice to build tension, so that you do know, oh, last time we heard Kickstart My Heart or by Motley Crue, we knew that there was only a couple songs left. So we were like, well, what if it goes into shuffle, like, and nobody knows when it ends until like it ends. Um, so like that's something we're gonna test out, but like there's just a lot of different things that keep popping up that that help with that, like whether it's the tension of hearing the playlist twice, or people's knowledge of the music, people being, like you guys said, just aware of it, and not relying so much on the DM for keeping track of timers, which I love timers. I love timers in all my games. And when the sky came looking for you, it was a timer that, like, every so often when you would go outside of the zeppelin, you were closer to the horizon, and and things were getting weirder. So I always love putting timers, because it's just that the sense of urgency kind of makes people lock in. Because if it's like, I love the beer and pretzels, just like, DCC, where you're just rolling dice and being silly, but the timer helps to keep that, um, keep it going, I guess. Like, it's not, like, same thing with 10 candles, and what's the Jenga tower one? I always forget. Dread. Like, that also counts as a big influence for Tales from the Tape Deck.
Yeah. No, I like anything, not just the mechanics. I mean, those are fun mechanical ideas. I personally don't see them being used all the time with adventure games, because there's like setup and stuff that, like,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
also playing over Discord. It's like, okay, the
yeah,
GM's like removing the Jenga block for you. It's a little different than playing with your friends.
yeah,
But I think what you're talking about with the music and with some of these things about like the Zeppelin, every time you go to location X, the clock advances. It's like easy to keep track of. It's easy for everyone to
exactly.
get that cinematic. Like, we're all used to movies showing us things three times. In a horror movie, the
Yeah,
third time is
Right.
when the jump scare happens, or it doesn't
yep,
happen, and then you're like, oh, we got to, and then no, then it's the scene right after that. So I think
yeah,
it's really fun to kind of take those really simple tools, that everyone, like you said, players know, they're familiar with, and then as a GM, it's a lot easier, because you're not reinventing the wheel. You're not doing some complicated mechanic. You're just like, yeah, I'm going to bet I'm going to have three things. And after the third thing, then, the Zeppelin's on fire, whatever.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah. And music, I mean, again, it's cool that you're able to play with that, with music you like, and also make new music for it, and actually work with bands. I don't know if you want to say any more
Mhm.
about that, and kind of because I
Yeah.
know there's an EP, so I'll drop the link to that as well, and we'll put it in the chat, in the show notes. But how is it working with musicians, and can you talk a little about sort of how that's different than game design? Obviously, right? Is like figuring which, maybe
Yeah.
Chris, you can say more about the OST for us, but yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll let Yamil good take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, like, I'm used to it from I used to, like, run my own, like, music shows, and I had a residency at a venue in Raleigh, where I would pick all the artists that were going to play that night, and and rounding them up back then was a lot harder than it was now. Now, I'm being like, hey, I want to showcase your song in a game. Like, I'm not trying to, um, like, the soundtrack, the 200 copies, like, that's me making some money, but the we expect most people to stream it, then go run and get tape cassette players. Um, so, um, it helped to have already, like, that network of folks that you could reach out to, and, like, it was pretty easy. That's why we put out the free EP. Actually, it comes out on Friday, but you can already listen to it on Bandcamp. It's just on Fridays when it's gonna hit uh, Spotify and Apple Music and everything else. Um, and so those were three kind of like leftover songs from Righteous Ride of the Radicals that I had made, and um, they were mixed by Seth Hutchinson, who his band Weight Shift is featured on Righteous Right of the Radicals. I didn't know he did mixing and mastering, and we were talking because we know each other from Goodman Games, from being fans of Dungeon Crawl Classics. And he tells me that he's doing mixing, and I was like, "Are you available right now? Like, hey, like, do you want to mix? Um, you want to mix some of the tracks that we have, the original ones?" And he's like, yeah. And it's been pretty quick to go back and forth with him. um there's one, I'm gonna tease it. I'm not gonna say it but there's one special guest that we're really excited about. He's a guitar player that like he's a virtuoso. Like he sent me his track like last week, and a few people, Ahmed, myself, and a few other people heard it, and we're like, we can just leave this alone and just put this track out. Like we don't need to like mess it up with Yamil's production or something. But um, but I'm really excited for people to hear that one. Once the soundtrack itself will be out, and again, we're aiming for December for the for the release date for Tales from the Tape Deck.
Nice. Well, I can't wait to hear John Frusciante.
Yeah. No,
No? Okay.
you know
Well,
what? And I got not with John, but I got connected with this guitarist when I was at Page. Like it was all like it was very very much community, like just hanging out with people and someone being like, hey, so and so, they might like to be part of this. Like this all sounds like a good idea. And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. And they're like, I know them. And I was like, oh, okay, like I'll reach out to them. And that's
yeah,
basically how it happened. Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask actually, did you meet Roderick Maxino at Page as well? I feel like y'all would get on like a house
Yeah.
on fire.
We've had a couple guests, Adam Good from Stations and
Yeah, yeah,
Roderick
I
Maxino,
know
and
them.
they've been working on a game together about music that they talked about on their different episodes. But yeah, I mean, I think music and RPGs is something I love music, but I've never it's just not been part of my like game design praxis to be like, okay, then a song thing happens, but it seems very simple and elegant, and I think there's a lot of cool ideas coming out. So I definitely want to borrow, some of these ideas going forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, Paige,
And
this is all the shout out small cons. Maybe that's something you can talk about, Yamil, as well. Some of the cons you're going to, but I was gonna say we met I met you at Page, but we met
yeah,
Roderick, and I'd already spoken with Adam, but it was cool to like to see designers come together and shoot the shit. And I do think for newer designers or people looking to get into it, almost everyone in the indie modern side of RPGs that I have met, I will say, has been super super nice. So I think
Yeah.
cons are a great way to just go up and be like, "Hey,
yeah,
I read this thing you did. It's cool," or even just like that thing looks cool. What is it? And just have a conversation. Sorry, Emil.
yeah.
You were gonna say something, yeah.
Everybody in the RPG industry that I've met has been nice and supportive, and um, I think I heard somebody one time say, if there's 1,000 people in the RPG industry, only like 100 of them are full time, and so everybody knows kind of like the uh, to help each other, and that it's kind of like taking turns on those 100 seats. Um, and yeah, like local cons are also really good just because you're building community. You're there with like-minded folks, whether like here in North Carolina, there's not really or in my side of North Carolina, there's not really like a gaming convention that kind of like dominates. Like out in Asheville and Charlotte, there was Mace that became Mythic Con, and like that one is I think it's about 2,000 people in the Charlotte version, maybe more. I haven't been in a couple years, but um, yeah, like finding that community over here in Durham where I live. There's a lot of uh, like video game developers, so I've kind of like tacked on to their crew, being like, yeah, I'm the weird guy with the zine games and stuff like that. Like, um, so I go to their developer events, and when they're demoing their stuff for Steam, I'll be like, hey, like you can go to itch.io and download my weird troika hack or whatever. Um,
Hell
and
yeah.
because a lot of them, the overlap is there. Same thing with science fiction and fantasy writers. Like there's a lot of good conventions for them here, and And I'll still show up and be like, I'm gonna talk about. I don't write. I don't write sci-fi or fantasy unless you count these games, and people still want to hear about it. So I suggest just getting involved with them. You can help volunteering is awesome. I've volunteered for many conventions, comic book conventions back when I was working in that space, and like people are happy to guide you, and people are like there's all sorts of mentorship programs or informal stuff, and it's always really wonderful to see like creatives. Like to me, that's why I go to cons. Is the energy I get from hanging out with other creatives.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Yeah.
kind of energizing to like hear what everyone's up to and just see how, like you said, it's like people are real and they have cool ideas, and right away they kind of start spitballing and, well, we got to work on something together. Or in our
Yeah,
case, we're often like, come on our show, and then we're like, oh fuck, we're booked for like 6 months, which is good, but
it's
it's like,
good. It's
yeah,
good.
it is good. But yeah, we have like 10-15 minutes. So we talked a little about Tales from the Tape Deck. That is the big project you're putting out now. You're still working on. Do
Yeah.
you have other big projects, Emil, that you want to shout out? Anything cool you're working on that we have not brought up?
Or anything
Um,
you want to just even tease, put out in the ether. Well, yeah, you heard it
uh,
here first.
I'm working on my first like I'm working on something with Plus One EXP. I'm excited to work with them. I've met them a couple times throughout like I think 2019 was when I first met some of them. So I'm excited to do that, but that's 2027. Um, let's see. I just put out a uh my combination of magical realism and troika, so like my own troika hack, where it's called Armageddon Harbor Deluxe.
Great
It's
name.
it's kind of like a White Lotus uh riff, but like White Lotus in like an abandoned island. And that one is on itch. I think I put it for free.
Yeah, yeah. I just looked it up. I was like, I've got to cop this, and it indeed says free right now. So
Yeah.
you could paywall it later, but
Yeah,
if there's like the people watching right now, they got to go get it.
yeah.
You
They should
gotta
pay
you
you.
gotta
They should
go
pay you.
right now.
No, no,
Um,
that one's gonna stay like that. Unless like you want the
Nice.
physical, then
sure.
you can buy the physical. Yeah, I think that's those are the ones that I can talk about right now. I'm doing work for Goodman Games. I'm always excited with the DCC side of stuff. Um, like it's a book of funnels. So everybody loves the zero level funnels. So
Everybody loves a
um,
funnel.
yeah,
I gotta
So that's
find
cool. Yeah, that's
this.
that. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, no, it's completely silly. I was just gonna find this. Here we go. This comment from Vex earlier. Plays DCC once. Why don't all my characters die? Which I thought was pretty brilliant. Pretty
Yeah,
brilliant.
it was a
here's a
good timely joke then, and timely again. So
here's a pro tip. My favorite thing is to name, because in a funnel you typically get four characters, and I always try to name them like Scooby, Shaggy, Velma. Like I always try to name them all in quartets. That way it adds a little bit of story for them.
Yeah, I
Um,
like that.
right.
I like that. And then, you have at least like a little narrative hook that you can attach on to once you're at the end of the funnel, instead of just being like,
exactly.
cool, I'm left with Glimglop, the goon
Exactly.
farmer or whatever.
Yeah. Instead is like I finished off with Donatello.
Yeah. Only one of the four brothers survived.
It's always Raphael. It's always
Yeah. Oh,
Raphael.
okay.
Oh, I mean, that's true. He was the
He's
last
the
Ronin or
survivor.
whatever
Yeah, the
whatever
last
that
Ronin. Yeah.
comic series was, where it's like the badass edgelord Ninja Turtle
you mean
stuff.
Cormac McCarthy's The Road, famously a biography of Donatello, the Ninja Turtle, after the end, after Krang wins.
Yeah, they're not eating, they're not cannibalizing babies. They're just eating turtle soup. It's like a horrifying realization for him.
Oh man, I think Turtles in Time had that line, right? It was like tonight we dine on turtle soup when you get to the end. Yeah, that really sticks with
yeah. Ninja Turtles 3 was pretty messed up, really, when you think about it.
Oh yeah. Anthropomorphic. We've said it once. We've said it again. Anthropomorphic animals, inherently weird. It gets weird for so many reasons. It's a whole series of books, can be and probably have been written on why. Yamil, I wanted to ask about fiction. You said you write fiction and you're a big fan of magical realism, as am I. This is not technically a literature podcast, but still, I was just wondering if you read anything good lately, or if you have published volumes that people can find in addition to your RPG work, probably by going to your website, I'm guessing, but.
So I did editing for that. I didn't do any. Well, I did some writing. I don't know how available it is anymore, but like I did like a superhero noir short story about 10 years ago. I think that's probably one of the last things I wrote. But yeah, no, most of it it wasn't self-published. It was small publishers. And what was the other thing? I'm sorry.
No, that's cool. I was just curious about fiction beyond games, and I don't know if you've read anything good lately, or anything that's an influence beyond. We talked about like classic adventure stuff, but and like Borges, but anything else, yeah.
So I just read this little book. I ran into it.
Yeah.
It's a few rules for predicting the future by Octavia Butler.
Nice.
It's small. It's like a little essay that she wrote. And that one feels very topical to now in so many layers and so many different ways, like not just like politically, but also like creatively, where we have things like, not to get too in the weeds with it, but like The Boys, the TV show, where like it kind of like went overboard, or we're like in like a weird post superhero thing in terms of our the media that we're being exposed to.
Our current mythological media cycle. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And she talks about that in all her work, about the need for new myths, right? And that's, I think,
exactly.
The parable books are kind of about this. It's so funny, Emil, I almost bought that book on Saturday, and that's a great essay, and I love that this new edition with the space rainbow kind of vibes is really beautiful. Yeah. It's really beautiful, tiny hardback. And now I'm kicking myself I didn't, just because it's such a great book. But yeah, it's very timely, and I think Butler, it's not random, and it's not just normal fads that Butler has come back into American consciousness and is like staying. You know what I mean? Like everyone is like discovering Butler, because she was so far ahead of her time in terms of predicting what would happen, and thinking about the need to think together, kind of critiques of capitalism, critiques of racialized culture in the United States especially, but also be a 100%. Materialist and do science and learn about biology and astrophysics. And she wasn't a mystic. And I think that, to me, as a scientist, is really important, that like I can learn from this person and respect that she's not telling me to like worship some frankly made up entity. It's like, no, you can go out there and learn about the real world, and that includes learning about humans in it and respecting them. And I don't know, I'm just a huge Butler fan, so I'm really glad you said that. And I do encourage everyone to pick up that book. I'm going to go do that.
And I'm reading Dead Astronauts by Jeff Vandermeer. And Jeff Vandermeer is one of my favorite authors.
Yeah, same.
My Note from Annihilation. Oh, awesome. I
haven't read Dead Astronauts though, so you got to tell me if it's any good.
Yeah, I haven't picked that up quite yet either.
If it's a kind of weird sequel to Born, if you read Born, which is like a post-apocalyptic, for like weird Frankenstein story. It's a Jeff Vandermeer thing, so there's layers and like just environmental weirdness.
Yeah, it's a
That
metaphor.
sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
No,
Is it? Yes.
I
No.
love
Is it
zone
real?
fiction.
I don't know.
Annihilation, that series, especially the fact the books are so restrained and weird.
Yeah.
It's very impressive in a way that you can write that many pages. It's almost like Sam Beckett and like not explain anything. And to me,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
magical realism,
Yeah.
it feels a little like magical realism in that you're like, wait,
Hmm.
is this a science fiction or is it fantasy
Yeah.
just because I'm confused? But you're like, nothing that's happened is that fantastic, and it definitely feels alien coded. So anyway, I love the kind of play with genre that you have to be really good at it, I think, to do that. But
Well,
yeah.
I don't know about I'm because I'm about to say that I do it. So I don't know about that piece if
I'm
it
sure
if
you're
you
good
have
at
to
it.
be
I'm sure you're
really good or not. But I really enjoy doing that of not explaining stuff. Like when you're on the Zeppelin for when the sky, um, like all the guards, I when I describe them, they always have different animal heads, but they just talk like cowboys. And it's and people are like, why the animal heads? And I was like, because it's supposed to be weird. Like you're headed to hell. Things aren't supposed to be making sense.
Yeah.
Like I'm not here to explain why they have like
Shit
animal
sucks.
heads. Yeah, um, and I also have started like I was on a different show but either way I start to hate on canon. Like I just make your own canon, like make it your
Yeah.
own. Whenever I release something, I want you to like with Tales from the Tape Deck, like there's no reason why like Stillfleet can take and um apply your system, apply the timer, and there you go.
Yeah.
That's your take on it. Like we made the D20 system aspect of it just because we had to. Um, the timer to me is the most crucial part of the entire game, just because like it's a new area for people to play with.
Yeah.
Um, but it's always like I want it to be that interaction, or at least get you to have a reaction to anything I write or anything I make, because I don't want it to be like I want it to have some spice or something. I don't know what to call it, but like that's why explaining
Yeah.
things and having a canon, like no, I don't care. Like
Yeah.
I'm
You want that
I'm
zhuzh.
yeah, I want it to for you to turn it into something for you. Like
Hmm.
Yeah.
for you to have something special. That way, it's not just rules, or it's not just uh your name dropping or something like,
Yeah.
oh,
Sure.
this
Yeah.
character is always is the Doctor Doom or whatever. Like I don't know. Like
No, I love that, and that's to your point. I think you're unpacking to some degree how do you forge real novelty in fiction, which applies to games very
Mm.
much. Which is, there are tropes, and if you always lean on tropes, like you're saying, it's kind of it tends to be weak, right? People feel it's overly familiar. They're kind of bored
yeah,
already.
yeah,
Whereas if you do something like every time you see the guards, they're kind of normal guards in the Evil Zeppelin, but A, they have weird accents that are out of place, and B, the heads are always different. Well, now it's sort of dreamlike, and you do question, like, why
exactly.
is that? And you begin to sort of fill that in yourself as a player. You automatically go to like
Right.
different fantastic science fictional explanations. And again, it sets a mood, it sets a tone. It's a little bit funny. It's in maybe a David Lynchy way, like creepy. It's a little
Yeah,
bit funny
Sure.
in a magical real way. It's a little bit dreamy. So I think that's a good example of being good at it and knowing and trusting yourself, right? Knowing that this will be memorable for one. It's fascinating or vivid. It's something that people will take with them, even if they don't remember everything. They're like, the Zeppelin was cool, the guards were cool, man, I gotta play that. And I feel like good games do that, right? Like Troika, the things people say about it,
yeah,
the things people say about any good game, they come down to a couple specifics because at the end of the day, of course, they're all just engines for having fun with our buds, telling weird stories, and a lot of it is interchangeable. A lot of them use the
Hmm.
same types of moves, rolling to attack or something. So the things that are memorable about it, yeah, you want to, as a designer, like make it fresh every time. So I
Yeah.
appreciate, yeah, very much where you're going with that.
Yeah. I agree, and I think something I think about a lot is just how powerful mystery can be.
yeah,
Just not having everything be over explained. It can be really fun. And I think, kind of a little bit to your point, Wythe, it also just invites a lot more collaboration from the player's side of things, right? It's like,
exactly.
well, I'm not going to take on the responsibility of explaining every single mechanic of this world to you. You just kind of have to accept it as what it is. And then, you can fill in the blanks, like you were saying, Wythe, you can kind of like fill in those
Yeah.
those weird spaces that get left behind, while also just making less fucking work for the GM, frankly.
Yeah.
Well, and I think to the politics. Sorry, Emil, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go for it.
I just to the politics of genre, the traditional left-right divide of fantasy and sci-fi is that fantasy is trying to kind of recode a trad, like a frankly revanchist, universe over the real, and sci-fi is trying to force you to imagine, a more communized, like, how could we possibly get to space? And if you do the math, it sort of does. I think it inherently breaks down every time you try to do the space capitalism. You end up with the Weyland-Yutani dystopia. And so you sort of have to say, okay, if I actually didn't want to live in a dystopia, I have to go in the direction of communism. And I think what's interesting with magical realism is it was a response historically to oppression, to tyranny, and it was a way to kind of tell stories that were taking Spanish colonial influence legends, and then a lot of sort of Spanish influence, and then bringing in that kind of high modern, like it's arch modernity, it's arch 20th century, just good writing, all the classics of magical realism. And I think that the stories are hard to like they're really hard to say exactly what they're saying, other than they always have this urge toward the human and to resist dictators. Specifically dictators usually are the bad guys, in the genre. So I think it's fun to kind of play with that and bring in some of those tropes, because again, even if people aren't like big into literature, they might get the vibe, right? And I think the vibe is more and more people are being able to get the vibe without having to have actually read
100 Years of Solitude.
Like I wish they would, but like, I don't know how much Gen Z reads books, but I think they somehow still get the idea, and we have to do that work of translation, forward into time and into different media. So blah blah blah. It's a long-winded way of saying it all sounds cool to me. And Animal Heads, as Vex points out, they make every music video better, so why wouldn't they make it better?
Dude, that's so true. Oh my god, yeah,
it really is.
Oh man, the music video for New Noise by Refused would be terrible if it didn't open with that Animal Head sequence.
What did the fox say? I mean,
it's a real deep cut. It's a real deep cut for y'all.
Wow.
Yamil, I want to make sure you have the actual last word. And Chris, you usually traditionally ask our final question. And I will then, I do want to plug our game jam, which actually touches on some of the things we're saying about translation and hacking games, and what is actually ownable or fun about the novelty, the making part. But yeah, Yamil, do you have any last words or things you want to shout out that we've not gotten to?
I mean, I have a newsletter. If you liked my rants, it's not a lot of rants. It's more observations on a con I went to, or some of the new things I'm reading. And you get a wizard versus wizard RPG game that I wrote a couple years ago, and that's just free. Yeah. So joseyamil.com would be my website for that. And feel free to reach out to me at any social media. I'm always happy to help fellow creators or people that just want to know more about, like, they've never been to a convention. Like, somebody reached out to me about that recently, and being like, hey, what are the best things to pack? And I was like, comfy shoes and a beer. But no,
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah,
that's great. Well, everyone check out joseyamil.com. We'll put in the chat and the show notes. Chris, do you want to ask the traditional final question? We covered a little bit of it just now, but
well, we've already answered the traditional final question. So yeah, go to where you can find Yamil's work, where you can support him, buy stuff, all the good things that make the clocks tick and pay the bills. Head over to the website. Like Wythe said, we'll have it in the show notes. Otherwise, Yamil, is there any other place? Are you Blue Sky, any socials or any other pluggables that you want to punch in before we head out?
Yeah. What is my Blue Sky? I'm on Blue Sky as something. Probably Yamil.
Yes.
I'm on Instagram as Yamil Writes. And usually on those, I'm just promoting either something new that's come out or a convention that I'm going to. Like, I'll be at Momo Con in Atlanta in a couple weeks. And then at the end of May, I'll be at Con Carolinas in Charlotte and Appalachian DungeonFest. Come to Kentucky with me and listen to Dungeon Synth for 3 days.
Hell yeah, brother! Days? It's time to siege the holler.
Yeah, I'm ready.
That's so much dungeon synth. Yeah, that would be really fun. Actually, that'd be really fun if I did not have a day job. I would just be like, yeah, let's just go to small cons. All these cons sound so rad. It makes me jealous every time someone's like, oh, I'm going to such and such con, and I'm like, I've never heard of such and such con. I bet it's great. People tend to be so nice. Not just the other creators, but the players. I found at the smaller cons, the players are so like. I think because they're markets where they're often
really
starved.
Sweet.
Yeah, they all know each other, and they're all like, "Can I make you a sandwich or something?" Like, I made cookies, and you're like, "Whoa, I'm not."
Do you need to ride back to your hotel?
Yeah, that big ups to everybody at Running Gag, who always helps us out a lot because we don't have cars, and they're like, "Why did you come to the middle of nowhere in a snowstorm without a car?" And I'm like, "I don't to play games, obviously."
Because we're idiots who live in big cities.
So on that note, Yamil, everyone should follow you, and we'll plug all your stuff again. One last plug before we call it is we're about to start the first ever Grit System Game Jam. So to the thing you said actually about translating something between games, converting it, that's something I would love it if you or someone would want to enter our game jam. We'd love that. We have a bunch of guest judges, we have prizes. We're not judging it, and it is really just a fun celebration. Everything is can be licensed with a third-party commercial-friendly license if you want. Obviously that's not again the goal, but we wanted to make sort of no barriers. So it's a game jam. It's running all summer long, and all of our games can be hacked, demade, re-upped, whatever the kids are saying. And I love that idea of just your favorite mechanics, bringing them on in. So just throwing it out here. Hopefully remind me to say it, Chris, if I don't, every single time for the summer. It's a Grit System Game Jam on itch, and it's pretty easy to Google. It's those words on Google. All right, so go support Yamil, and then consider entering our game jam.
And then jam. Yep.
Any last words from any D-makers, hackers, or re-uppers?
Stay elite, hacksaws. That's all I got.
I think it's called leap maxing now.
Leap maxing,
no,
yeah.
It is probably.
No, I got leap bogged.
All right. Well, with that, I'm gonna go like
wow, that's gonna age. That's gonna age beautifully.
Yeah.
In 2 years, somebody will be listening to this episode and just be like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, they'll unsubscribe if they get to the 1 hour 7 minute mark. No, thank you so much, Yamil. We'd love to have you back on.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Thanks Chris, as always.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. Good night, everybody.